But without further ado, I'll now pass over to Nancy, who is our program leader for illustration.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this session. What we're going to be talking about today is portfolio preparation, what you may or may not want to put into your portfolio, how the interview process will work, and what sorts of things each of the different individual programs that we're representing here today might be looking for. There are lots and lots of things that are very common. Almost all the visual arts and design programs are looking for some things that are kind of similar across the whole of them. For example, they'll be looking for sketchbooks and evidence of ideas and research and so on. But there are also differences between the programs, and we're going to show that by showing you some slides and talking through the different kinds of emphasis that we might be looking for. All the people who are going to be talking to you today are successful applicants who have had places and gained places on the courses, and they're just going to talk to you about their experience and what they showed and what their interview was like. So if I just go to the next slide, oops, sorry. So today we're talking about portfolio workshops for art, design and fashion. All of those courses do, as I say, require portfolio, and we do provide an interview. That interview might be either online or in person in the studio. And that is because we're very interested in you as well as your work. We want to meet you and talk to you and find out what you're interested in. So one of the things is, obviously in that interview, we're asking you lots of questions, and we're asking you about the content of your portfolio and why you're interested in applying to us. So what we'll cover is the courses. In this talk, we'll cover the courses and what they require for the different portfolios and interviews. We'll suggest some interview questions that you might want to think about. We'll talk to you about the format of your portfolio, the content of the portfolio, perhaps how's the best way to present it. And we're also going to show you a little bit of graduate work, just so that you sort of see perhaps the differences between the different programs. All the courses that require a portfolio are animation, 3D animation and games, fashion, communication and styling, fashion design, fashion textiles, 3D design foundation, visual arts foundation, interior architecture, interior design, photography, graphic design, illustration, and fine art. The 3D design foundation, the visual arts foundation, is a pre-course, and you can apply to those foundations with an indicated degree, and then if you pass your foundation, you go on automatically onto that degree. So we've got degree courses here and we've got foundations, and we'll be talking to you about how to prepare your portfolio for that. We interview all students, as I say, and there are two sort of ways of doing that at the moment. One is, as I say, on campus, face-to-face, and the other would be online. Either way, you receive an email with an invitation, and you can choose which of those options you want to do. We would always kind of recommend, if it's at all possible, that you do come to campus, because then you get an opportunity to see the facilities. You can meet some of the other students, and we can do a little tour of the studios and the base rooms that you'll be working in. So if it's possible, it's always a good idea to come to campus. It's always a good idea to come to any of the open days if you're considering that you want to apply to us for the same reasons. It means that you really get a feel for the university and what we can offer. There are lots of information on films and videos online and on our website, and you can look at all of those. But there's nothing quite like a kind of visit and a chat with students in the studios to kind of really give you an idea of what it would be like for you. When we interview you, it's not a nasty, formal, horrible, scary job interview. What it really is, the purpose of the interview is that we want to find out about you. We're going to take you on for 3 years, and we're interested in what makes you tick, what you like, what inspires you. And it's not always a conversation just about what's in your portfolio. It might well be a conversation about other interests that you have, and things outside of your studies that inspire you. So really it is a kind of chat about your work and you know, concerns that you may have, and any questions that you might have. When we're interviewing you, we're also wanting to see what your understanding is of the course that you're applying for, because that's quite important, that you know and understand the subject that you want to do 3 years in. So questions you might want to prepare for: you should have a clear reason for why you've chosen that particular specialist course. That will be something we would talk to you about in an interview, why you think you might want to do the subject that you've applied for. Why have you chosen to apply to Middlesex? That's also quite important, because not all of the courses are the same. You might find that photography at Middlesex is quite different to photography in another university. And it's interesting for us to know what it is that made you choose the particular course, our course. We always really want to know if you've visited Middlesex, because that gives us a really good idea of how interested or committed you are to the course. Obviously, if you're a long way away, then that is more tricky, and that would be part of the conversation that we would have. What made you decide to come to Middlesex, and did you visit? Was that part of your decision making? And as I said before, we're also interested in your interests, and that could be interests like perhaps you like collecting stamps, or you sort of like going for long walks, or you read particular sort of books, or you're interested in a particular film genre. We're interested in all of that, because it makes up the complete student. So the content and format of the portfolio. Here are a few tips for presenting your portfolio, but I think the thing I would say before I say read out any of this is the most important thing is that the portfolio represents you. There is no generic portfolio which will just get you into any course. What's really important for you to understand is that we are looking at your work and we're interviewing you. So we are interested in you. So it isn't that there's one sort of way of working that suits everybody, and your personality will often come out through your portfolio. But there are a few things that do help when we are looking at portfolios, and these are some of those things. So do make sure that you present your work neatly. In here it says against a white background. I don't think it's a deal breaker if it's not a white background, but it needs to be a pale, calm background which enables you to see the work. That's very important. We do want to be able to see the work. I think it's important not to overcrowd your pages. Let us look at each image and let us enjoy looking at it, rather than being kind of bombarded so we can't really see anything. Please do bring sketchbooks and or scan in pages of sketchbooks. It's really important for us to be able to have a look at how you think, how you arrive at imagery, what triggered off a body of work. So whatever your course that you're interested in, whatever the specialism you're interested in, that kind of ideas stage, how you arrive at the ideas for what you want to work on and what you want to do, evidence of that is really important, because quite often that's where the most interesting thinking is. And we are looking for people who think and are creative and investigative. So those are really important. I mean, often when I interview somebody and I say, did you bring any sketchbooks? And they say, oh no, I left them all at home. And you just think, oh, what a pity, because that is often the thing that can really make somebody interesting and perhaps gain an offer of a place. Yes, avoid including too much text. We don't need annotations. If I'm looking at a life drawing or I'm looking at a book cover, I don't need the word life drawing written underneath it. I know what it is. But it might be that you do want to caption something so I understand that it was a project on identity perhaps, or something else. So some annotation is useful, but don't write the obvious. And don't write an essay. It's just a simple thing. I think obviously 3D artworks often do need to be photographed. You can't bring in large pieces of sculpture or paintings or anything like that. And do try and make sure that you do photograph them so that they can be seen. You know, do have a neutral background and do think about the lighting. And again, large work does need to be scanned or perhaps reduced to fit into your portfolio. So as I said right at the beginning, the most important thing for any of us, I think, is that your portfolio needs to represent you. We're interested in you. We're interested in your work and what you make and what makes you tick. So really that your portfolio needs to sort of show us that and excite us and sort of think, oh yes, this person's really interested in, I don't know, mountain walking or kind of aeroplanes, or as I said, stamps, or I don't know, whatever's. But that's the thing, you know, well, all creative people have things that kind of they follow and intrigue them. So looking at what makes you, you know, your interest and your way of doing things, your ambitions, that's very useful. Your portfolio can cover a range of subjects such as typography, layout, photography, life drawing, illustration, printmaking, animation. You are all going to have different portfolios because presumably you're all interested in different things. And of course, you're also interested in applying, applying to particular courses. So it is quite important when you apply that you do include work that does show skills of the particular course that you're applying for. So for example, if you're applying for photography, you really do need to have some photography in your portfolio. If you're applying for illustration, it would be a good idea to have some illustrative work and drawing in your portfolio. If you're applying for fashion, have some fashion design and fashion conscious imagery in your portfolio. It means that you're looking, you're interested, you're engaged, and you know what the subject is. That's very important, I think. It's very important that not everything needs to be finished. In fact, as I mentioned, I think with sketchbooks, you know, it's often the beginning of a project that is the most interesting bit. Sometimes the end doesn't always turn out like you hoped it would, or it's got a bit overly complicated, or maybe you haven't actually managed to finish a piece of work. We're not always interested in very finished work. What we're interested in is what makes you tick and what you're interested in. And sometimes your sketchbooks, your initial developmental work, that is very interesting to us, and we can have a conversation with you in an interview about it. Show your ideas through process and visual research. That's very much what I've just been saying. And if you've got any work that is responding to a brief, particularly if you're kind of applying for the more design-based courses, such as graphic design, illustration perhaps, and interiors, then being able to respond to a brief is a very useful skill to show. It does mean that we can see that you are responding to that. I mentioned sketchbooks. Sketchbooks come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. They aren't meant to be sort of finished products of, you know, final pieces. Sketchbooks should be where you do your thinking. And some people don't keep sketchbooks. It might be that you work on large sheets, or it might be that you work on individual pages. But do try and bring them together so that we can see how you think. We can see evidence of how you sort of take an idea and you develop it through to perhaps your finished outcome. And sketchbooks are very, very useful for that. And here are a few more pages. And there's no right or wrong way of having a sketchbook. It's your thinking place. It's how you give evidence of what you're doing and what you're thinking of. So now we're going to have a few slides of the different courses that we offer here. And with each of these, I'm going to introduce you to a graduate academic assistant, and they will be talking about their own particular programs and what their experience was on that program. So I'm firstly going to introduce you to David, and he was a student on the graphic design BA. David, would you like to start?
Hello. Yeah, hello. So firstly, I will be showing you some images of portfolios today, but if you want to see examples of more student work, please do check out our website, which is mdxgraphics.com. So that's great. And then, so just a really quick thing about the interview. So it's really, informal. It's an informal chat basically, and it's no longer than 10 minutes. If you did come to campus, you can have a chat with the students and see classes in progress, which is really always interesting, and the facilities as well. Yeah, it's a chance for us to have a chat, and you've got the opportunity to be shown all the different things that you may not be able to see when you're on Zoom. You will meet a tutor from the course, and yeah, but definitely, you know, plan to be us for a bit longer if you do choose the campus option, so that you can chat with us and you can see lots more great work that people have done.
Shall I go on to the next slide? Yes.
Yeah. So this is an example of someone's, what they've done here is they've included core graphic design work. So they've got a variety of different media, like we said before, processes and development of an idea. And yeah, so as you go through the sketchbook, you'll see different, you know, they've developed the idea, they've cropped images, they've showed us their thought processes. This one's a bit more about their process, you know, what they've done to get from A to B to C. The next one, again, you know, there's not too much on this page here. It's not too crammed, and you take the time to look at each image, so there's not too much on there. And yeah, again, a bit more about her development of her idea. And yeah, here you've got a, you know, she's actually showing the process that she, a bit of her, you know, in the making, as well as the final outcome. So that's always interesting to see, and you know, what you did to come to the final outcome. Another project here, this is a personal piece. So not only is she including her project from her college, she's got stuff that she's done, you know, for her clients or for her family members. Again, you've got sketchbooks, digital work, experimentations, and as we move through, we've just got a lot more. She's taking it from just the logo to, you know, how does she make her brand, you know, different design collateral, Instagram. She's showing us it in different formats. And yeah, and also, you know, mood boards are great because they can show us your design thinking. And yeah, again, you know, definitely include drawings. And for more of our student work, please do see our Instagram page and our website. And you can get to the Instagram page, which is at MDX Graphics, through the website as well.
Thank you, David. That's great. I mean, we'll come to questions and answers at the end. So don't, you know, do obviously jot down any questions that you have or put them in the chat, and we'll can answer on a more general basis at the end. I think for the time being, we're just going to go through each course. And hopefully what will happen as you look at each discipline, you will see subtleties in the differences of what the courses are looking for. And that will help you to think about what sort of subjects you might be interested in. So now we're going to illustration, and I'm going to introduce you to Elise, who is also a graduate from BA Illustration. She's just going to talk you through these slides.
Yeah, so hi. This is again like more general information about the interview processes for BA Illustration. So like other courses, we're offering online and on-campus interviews. And like I said before, it's just a really good chance for us to get to know you and just chat about your work and your interests, and for you to get to ask questions about us. The interview will be one-to-one with a tutor from the course and last approximately 15 minutes. And of course, if it's on campus, it's going to be a bit longer. And you'll also be taken around the actual facilities and the studios, and you get to hopefully talk to some of the students on the course and see what kind of work they do here. And the tour will be done by, that's okay, will be done by one of the GAAs, so either me or the other GAA for illustration course. Yeah, and while we're doing the tour, the tutor will be looking through your portfolio, and then you'll go for the interview. Yeah, so these are just some examples of student portfolios that have gotten into the course. So like you can see, they have a lot of sketchbook works, and if it's 3D, of course, photographed well. And you can see experimentation, and you can see work development. And yeah, so 3D work, sketchbooks. Again, here it's really good to see kind of how their ideas have developed and possibly some research into different topics or artists is really good to see as well, to tell us what you're interested in or where your inspiration comes from.
And I think particularly for illustration drawing, there's always
Yeah.
evidence of drawing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's also really good for illustration specifically to include life drawing and observational drawing, as that's also going to be a core part of the course. So we want to see that you also done a bit of it yourself. And if you haven't done it as part of your college programs or anything, then it's really good to just give yourself some projects that would include some life drawing or observational drawing or whatever you are interested in the course. So whether it's like editorial or children's books or character design like here, and here's some good experimentation with printing processes and some more digital work as well. So we can see that you also have a range maybe from traditional to digital work. Yeah, and here are some examples of some of the graduate work. And you can also see a lot more examples of different graduate work at Middlesex Illustration graduategallery.com. Yeah, it's great.
And I just need to say that that piece at the top is Elise's piece from her graduate year.
Yay.
With the different collectors, wondrous collectors. Thank you very much, Elise. Let's go on to interiors, and Carolina. Would you like to talk through the slides for us?
Yeah,
please?
of course. Hello, everyone. So if you will decide to apply for interior architecture and design or design, we will ideally expect you to provide us 15 to 20 pieces of your work. If you will have an online interview, you will have to photograph and put everything to a nice presentation for us to see it. And it's always good to see a variety of your work using different techniques of drawing, painting, such as still subject, live drawings, figures, drawings of the views, live drawings, interiors. So any drawing possibly you think is related, it would be good to see. And examples of making as well is really important, because we do like making, we do like to see the process. So that would be really nice as well to include, as well as the photographs and any media work you have done. And very important to say that we want to see not all finished and polished work. It can be unfinished, and we want to see your creativity and the process of your projects you may have done. And here's, for example, some models of our students, what they've done, how they taught. You can see the process as well, and a different approach maybe, and as well as a bit of sketching and little notes explaining what they taught and how they did the bits and bobs. Yeah. Here as well, you have a mood boards and pictures of the process, materials, models. So this is something that we would expect from you to see. And this is our graduates' works. Every year we do have a show, so you can see how possibly it looks like and how many things we have on the table. So we really are into the making, and I think it's very important from our course for you to remember that we are really looking for variety, creativity, and process.
Thank you very much. Let me just go to, oh, that was interesting. We jumped so photography, sorry, apologies. This is behaving slightly peculiarly today. So photography is next, and we have Will.
Hi there, thank you, Nancy. Yeah, so I'll talk a bit about what we expect in photography. It feels like everything's been said, so a lot of it I'll be kind of repeating. So in photography, what we really want to see is that you can work on projects, so, we want to see that you can kind of sustain a project over a number of weeks. So it's good for you to show kind of longer kind of bodies of work if you can, and sketchbooks and things like that, because essentially this is how you'll be working throughout the degree. You'll get a brief and you'll be asked to respond to that brief. So it's good to show that you can kind of think through a project and a concept and kind of see something from start to finish, and we can see your kind of process. So yeah, you can show this through your portfolio and through sketchbooks and kind of reference material. But also what's really important is that you show work that you're really passionate about. If you show work that you're passionate about, you'll present it well, and we'll get a good idea about, you know, about what you're about and what interests you as an artist and a photographer. And it'll also demonstrate really well that you're enthusiastic about the subject. So we're offering the option of in-person or online. If you're coming to campus, it's a good idea to bring a printed portfolio. So about 20 images is enough. You can bring sketchbooks and things like that as well. And really, we want to see that you've thought through the presentation. So what really stands out to us are portfolios, photographic portfolios that are printed with care, you know. So something that's presented in a box or a book or a folder. Saying that, we don't expect you to spend loads of money on a portfolio. You know, these kinds of presentations can cost a lot. It's, you know, what we really want to see is just that you've taken care and that you've presented it in a way which is nice and clear, and you know, you've taken care with the prints. If you have things like moving image, you can bring that on a USB stick, or you can bring it on a laptop and you can show it on there as well. If you're interviewing online, you'll be asked to submit a digital portfolio. So again, around 20 images is plenty. And also, you know, in terms of the layout and the presentation, similar to a printed portfolio, we're looking to see that you've kind of taken some care and consideration about how you've laid out portfolios. So these are the ones on that last slide were third-year portfolios. So, you know, we're not necessarily expecting anything that polished, but it's good for you to be kind of aware of what we're after and what kind of we expect portfolios to be kind of presented as. And then at the interview, really try not to be too nervous, because essentially it's an informal chat. Like Nancy mentioned earlier, it's not an interrogation. We're not trying to kind of catch you out or anything like that. Really, we just want to get to know you, to see what makes you tick, to see that you're passionate about the course and that you've thought about the course and you know what we're about as well. The interview usually lasts kind of 15 to 20 minutes, and it's good to have some questions to ask. And if you're on campus, we'll give you a tour of the facilities and a kind of a presentation about the course as well. So we're quite thorough. We make sure that, you know, we get to know you, but also you've got the right information to make the right choice as well. And just to finish, yeah, if you have the option and you can, I'd really recommend having an on-campus interview, because it's really good. Like other people have mentioned, it's really good to see the facilities and to see students at work and actually talk to people and get a feel for the place.
Thank you very much, Will. That's great. As I said at the beginning, you will find that with a lot of the things that are being said are similar across all of the programs. That is because it's all about portfolios, and really all we're saying is within those portfolios, let us look at you and what you're interested in. We've got fashion next, and I'm going to ask Iman to talk us through her slides. Iman, when you're ready.
Hi guys, thanks so much Nancy, and welcome to the fashion program section. As Nancy said, a lot of this, what I'm going to be saying, is already being said. However, in this short section, I will be representing fashion design, fashion textile and design, and fashion communication and styling. So 3 of our degree courses, as well as our fashion foundation course as well. So in terms of portfolio format, your portfolio is definitely a collection of your creative work that introduces you to us and explains your interests and skills. So think of your portfolio as that, and you putting your best foot forward. It should be at least 20 pages long and include a variety of work. Now, that may sound like a lot, but really it's like 10 pages back to back. And I'm sure once you've got at least 3 really great projects, like Will said, projects that you've been working on, whether it's from A-level or your BTEC or a GCSE or a self-directed project, it will be enough. Third point, it should show your interests in and knowledge of the area of fashion you are applying for. So as Nancy said earlier, that the work that is in your portfolio should reflect what it is you're applying for. So if it's fashion design, it will reflect fashion design. If it's fashion and textile design, you may add textiles. If it's fashion communication and styling, you may have like a self-directed styling project, etc. Just be sensible and, you know, think of what it is you're putting in to who you're applying to, if that makes sense. And yes, portfolios can be physical books, especially in person. We want to see you bring a great portfolio in. Tend to be like an A3 size landscape. That's the kind of size we work to. And of course, if your interview is online, we expect you to submit an online portfolio, or if you're a bit snazzy, you know, it could be a movie or a short film that you've put together. But if it's in person, we would expect you to bring a physical portfolio and probably an example of a final garment, or if it's fashion communication and styling kind of thing that you want to go to. It could be a campaign that you've put together, etc. So portfolio guidance, we would expect to see a variety of visual work that may be made up from projects undertaken at GCSE level, A level, BTEC, if you're doing a foundation course right now, whatever's the most current and relevant work that you're doing, we want to see it. And also include any independent work that you've done. If you've got a business, add that into your portfolio, or any kind of client work that you've done. We want to see that you've got a keen interest in fashion design, and of course in the subject that you're wanting to study. We want to see great examples of research and design development, and we want to see that we want to see like a broad range of your research. You know, I do a lot of interviews, and one thing I can say, if I can give you some advice, do not say you like Alexander McQueen. Every student in England says their favorite designer is Alexander McQueen. So if you want to really stand out, of course, we give honor where honor is due. McQueen and the things that Sarah Burton has been doing at the fashion house is incredible, but there are many more designers out there for you to choose from. So of course, choose from the big pool of designers. We want to see a breadth of your skills. We want to see your sewing. We want to see your drawing. We want to see if you're really good at screen printing. We want to see if you're really good at styling. Show us, put your best foot forward, show us who you are through your work. And of course that leads on, we want to see just a willingness of you experimenting and taking creative risk. And of course, I'm sure a lot of you have been working at home, working through a pandemic. And I know it's been challenging and hard, and we acknowledge that, and we know that has caused like a curtail in your education to some extent, but we want to see how you've adapted to that and how you've overcome those issues with working online or hybrid learning. And of course, the ability to document your ideas and creative process from start to finish. We want to see that there's a chronological order within your portfolio. You don't just jump from one thing to another, but within that project, we want to see a definitive start, we want to see development, and we want to see a resolve or a conclusion that makes sense. So if you kind of follow that kind of calculation, you'll be all right with us. Next slide, please, Nancy. So, oh, I think, is it fashion design first? I think.
Yeah, just it jumped, sorry.
No problem. So in terms of fashion design, just quickly, our course leader, Joe Turvey, he's our course leader. And some of the things we want to see in your portfolio is we want to see research, we want to see drawing and illustrations. So there's some examples there. We want to see some stand work. We want to see you toiling and moulaging and your relationship with fabric and working on a body or on a mannequin. And of course, we want to see anything that you've done or resolved. So if it's a garment, or if you've got any samples of how to make a collar, or if you've done a skirt, anything to do with sewing, garment construction, drawing, you understanding the human form and the body and fabric and its movement, we want to see that in your portfolio. Next slide, please, Nancy. Fashion, textiles and design, our course leader is Jodie Ruffle. And for textile and design course is like a best of both worlds. So it's fashion design and textiles. And within this course, you've got 3 specialist areas. So you've got knit, weave and print. So we want to see where you're at with these things. We want to see your understanding and relationship with color. We want to see who inspires you. We want to see, have you gone to an exhibition? What artists are you inspired by? We want to see fabric manipulation and sampling, loads of it. If you've got real life like examples, take really great pictures of them, add them into your portfolio. If you're coming onto campus, bring them with you, well presented, neat in some sort of like folder. We want to see your design work as well. And I learned from I think it was Orla, I can't remember her name, famous textile designer, Orla Kelly, I think. And she always said, show that your textile has a home, meaning that if you're designing textiles, where is it going to be placed in the end? So we want to see your textile designs either on the body or if it's for interior design, etc. So that's what we want to see in a portfolio if you're applying for the fashion, textile and design course. And next slide, please, Nancy. So fashion, communication and styling, and our course leader is Vlad. Now this course is actually really quite dynamic, and I work a lot with fashion, communication and styling. And what we want to see in terms of a portfolio, we really want to see kind of like your taste level and who really inspires you. We want to see the magazines that you read. Who do you follow on Instagram? We want to see your understanding of the world around you. We want to see your relationship with clothing. You could do a self-directed styling project. We want to see, similar to things that we've seen in fashion design and fashion textile design in terms of drawing, research, but we want to see like photography from yourselves. We want to see, again, campaigns that you've liked or things that you've done with your team mates at school. So I think this would be a great opportunity if you do have like any collaborative work to definitely put it into the portfolio in terms of for fashion, communication and styling. And next slide, please, Nancy. So this is just some examples of our fashion graduate work. Of course, you might not be at this level, so don't panic. This is where you could possibly be with us. Of course, we are quite a dynamic course, so we want to see full garments. We have, I don't know if you can see that body turning around. That's a program that we are introduced to our fashion design students, which is Chloe 3D. And basically that's a program in which you would be able to basically make clothes online digitally. And a lot of our fashion graduates last year did this and it was amazing. But this is all kinds of stuff that you can look forward to, and just a little bit of extra stuff in terms of what you could use in your portfolio. I definitely would say give us a mixture of handwork and digital work. We really want to see that. We really want to see clear, well laid out pages. Even in your interview, it most likely will be me interviewing you or another member of staff or a group of us. We just want you guys to be yourselves, be honest, be passionate about what it is you want to study, because that passion, we can take that passion on and push you in the right direction. And I would also say, yeah, just be confident in who you are, confident in where you want to go, where you would like to go, and definitely follow us on our MDX fashion Instagram page as well to see anything else that our students are doing. So I hope that's helpful, and back to you, Nancy.
Thank you very much, Iman. Okay, last but definitely not least, we come to Georgia in fine art. And Georgia, if you want to start talking through your slides, I'll click through to the first one.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. Hi, everybody. So for fine art, like everyone else, we're offering online and in-person interviews. So if you are coming in person, you'd want to bring a big folder with your work in, so about A1 size maximum, but obviously it can be smaller if that suits your work. And if you can bring your original work because it fits in the folder, that would be great. But if it's too large for the folder, good quality documentation is really important. So I'll show that in later slides. But yeah, basically really clearly mounted on white paper, and we don't want you to have your work sort of loosely floating around in the folder. It's good to have it in a nice order so you can turn right to your most interesting project and talk us through it, because we don't have that much time per interview. So you want to be really familiar with talking through your project so that we don't run out of time and we've missed out on hearing about your best project that you've done. And also, if you do sound or video work, please bring it on a USB stick. If it's quite long, it might be better to have clips of it that you can show us, just because we might not have time to watch the whole thing. I think for fine art, the main thing that we really want to see is that you don't limit yourself to one way of working, and that you sort of are open to trying different ways of making and different ways of executing your ideas. So if you've got a portfolio that's sort of all painting, we're kind of looking for more variety. So if you've tried other things as well, but maybe they're not your favorite, but you've still tried them, it'd be really good to see a big variety of different things that you've done, and sort of how your work progresses from the idea stage all the way through to a finished outcome. But yeah, basically to see sort of who you are as an artist, and so everyone's portfolio will be different. There's no sort of strict formula to it. Can I have the next slide? Thank you, Nancy. So I've got a couple of examples, and I think they work the same for if it's digital or in person. But basically what we've got here, this student, on the left, they've got some life drawing examples, and on the right is some different types of experimental photography that they've tried. And with the live drawing, if I remember correctly, this was something they didn't feel had gone that well. It wasn't sort of a top skill for them, but it was really good they'd still included it, because it showed they're willing to do things and show things that are a bit outside of their comfort zone and aren't sort of the most polished thing, and it sort of shows a variety of different things they've tried. Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So this is an example of how you might present work that was project development. So for this student, their project was about places that they have a personal connection to and they have sort of an emotional connection with. So the student had taken pictures around his home area, and then instead of just sort of showing those photos as they are, he wanted to respond to them in different ways and try different ways of interacting with those images. And the way he's displayed it sort of shows a few of those different ideas being tried, and it shows that rather than just going single-mindedly in one direction, he likes to experiment with different things before choosing the way to go. Next slide, please. Thank you. So you might also have work that was best sort of experienced in person, and you might think, how am I going to reflect what this was like in a portfolio? So this piece of work was it was a sculpture, and then it had a video projected onto it, which obviously it's very hard to do in an interview, and we probably wouldn't be able to do that in an interview. So what they've done is filmed this sort of happening and then shown us some screenshots, and this is in a digital format, but they've shown sort of the best screenshots from that video, and it gives us a picture of what that was like in person. Next slide, please. And then this one shows how you can show 3D work, because obviously that would be really difficult to bring as well. And what they've done here, obviously it's not a super high-tech setup, it's not a photography studio, but they have made choices about how to document it with the lighting, and they've sort of cleared the background and made it quite simple. And so just through a few sort of choices about how you're going to set that up, you can make some really clear documentation of what you've made and how you want it to be seen. So I think that's the last slide, but I was just going to add that in the interview, it's really your chance to sort of talk about who you are as an artist, and it's really important that you can talk about your project. So I think practicing talking through is a really important part of your preparation. But yeah, that's everything. But I was going to say, if you want to catch up more with what we're doing on the course, you can follow us on Instagram. It's at mdx_fine_art. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Georgia. Well, I think, we've now, as I said, gone through all the different programs, and I hope you've managed to see that there are similarities and there are differences. I think those slides and the things that are being said about how to put your portfolio together hopefully have been really useful for you to start to get an idea of the sorts of areas of art and design you might be interested in following or applying for. It is all quite daunting at the beginning, and it's quite difficult sometimes to sort of know the differences between the courses. Quite often at an interview we're asked, or at an open day we're asked, what's the difference between graphics and illustration? What's the difference between perhaps interiors and architectural, and interior design and interior architecture? And I think that those are questions, they're very good questions, and they're useful for you in terms of you understanding what it is you're applying for and the course that you want to go on. And people ask me what the difference is between fine art and illustration, and so on and so forth. So there are lots of crossovers, but there are significant differences, and it is always really worth trying to look at what those differences are when you're making a decision to sign up to something for 3 years. It's an investment for 3 years, so you want to make sure you're getting it right. And as Iman was explaining, between the fashion courses, they all have different characters and different personalities, and will take you in different career pathways. So one of the things is the open days. The open days are really, really useful for this, because you can come to campus, you'll be spoken to by the program leaders or representatives of the different courses. You can walk around and visit all the different studios and ask the GAAs or SLAs or whoever it is that's working on the day what the differences are. You can also, obviously, I would suggest that you actually do some research into fashion textiles as opposed to fashion design, or illustration as opposed to animation. So it's always also worth really having a look at that and sort of finding out for yourself. Look at illustrators, look at animators, look at painters, look at sculptors, look for yourself and do that kind of research. Do we have some questions, Anjali, that we could open up to?
Yeah, we've got a few questions that have come through. So for the first one, we've got, for a physical portfolio, what size would you suggest printing it?
Okay, well, I think all of the GAAs have actually spoken about that, and some have recommended sizes. Fashion suggested A3, fine arts accepting up to A1, because obviously you might be doing large paintings or large scale imagery or drawings. On graphics, I think that they wouldn't want anything particularly bigger than, well, certainly not bigger than A1, but it can be A4, A3, A2, and so on. The same would be for illustration. We don't sort of set a size as such particularly. I think the point is that the portfolios enable you as an applicant to show what you need to show us. I mean, I have had interviews where a student has arrived with 2 portfolios and 3 suitcases, and I have to say my heart sank, and I just thought, I don't know if I can face this. But I've also had somebody who's arrived with a tiny A4 with 3 sheets of paper in it, and I've also thought, I don't know if I can face this. So I think the reality is you have to produce enough that we can see what you're about and what you do and what makes you tick, and that is representative. Lots of the GAAs have talked about perhaps 20 pages. Again, we don't particularly specify that in illustration, but that's a good guide, I think. 20 images or drawings or pieces of work, some of it sketchbook, some of it finished pieces. But the most important thing is that your portfolio represents you and what you want to say about yourself. And the scale and the size may be something that you want to say about yourself. So I think all of these things are part of the presentation. Will in photography mentioned presentation. You are representing yourself in that portfolio. I mean, if it's thrown together, it's nasty scraps of paper. I had a student come once with something rolled up in bits of elastic band and elastic, and we couldn't get it out. It took 20 minutes to unroll it. Think about the fact that you need to make it easy for the person who's interviewing you to see it.
That's a really good point. So thank you so much for that, Nancy. We've got another question that's come through, which is the work for interior design mostly done digitally?
Caroline, would you like to answer that?
Can you repeat the question? Mostly done digitally.
Yeah.
No, if you have any digital work, it's absolutely fine. If in interiors talking during the course, we will do digital work, but as well we will do lots of making. So we will begin with the actual making, and then we will go digitally slowly throughout all years.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Carolina. We've also got another question. So, what do you think would be the best way to include writing work in a photography portfolio? So, Will, maybe do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. So so you may have done essays in your A levels or BTEC or whatever you've done before. So you may have some written work that you want to show, or it might just be research as well. It might just be kind of artist research in a sketchbook. So yeah, you can show it as a sketchbook if you like. You can bring it in. It can be, if it's in a sketchbook, it might be handwritten, or it might be kind of pasted in. It might be printed out and pasted in. That's fine. If it's like an essay or something, what I would suggest is just giving us an extract from that, essentially, because the interview process isn't very long. We won't have time to read a whole essay that you've done, but if you can kind of give us maybe an extract from an essay or something like that, or an interesting piece of research that you've done that's just a few hundred words long, 300 words long, then that's really good. We do like to see written work because it shows that you're kind of engaged in a kind of deeper way with photography, and that you're really thinking about it and working through that stuff in writing, not just photographically. And obviously there's a writing element to the course as well. So yeah, it is a good thing to bring, but we won't have time to read a whole essay. So if it's a long piece of work, do kind of either cut it down or highlight what you'd like us to read. Just nothing too long, essentially.
I think if I can come in on that, being somebody who's done many interviews over the years, the thing about the interview is often, in illustration, but in some of the other programs as well, we may well have looked at the portfolio beforehand, and what we're really doing in the interview is wanting to find out about you, about the person who's making the application. I think if somebody sat down and read an essay in front of you for 20 minutes, it's not really a very successful interview, because we can have read your essay, but we don't necessarily, we haven't had a conversation, you haven't asked us questions, and we haven't asked you questions. So I think the point of the interview is not so much to talk about, well, in some cases it might be to talk about the work, but it's to sort of have a conversation with you. Okay.
Nancy, and thank you, Will, as well. That's really good insight from both of you. We've had a couple of questions come in that are quite similar, and they are around if they haven't done any prior work, or they haven't taken like a creative course in college or school before, what do you recommend they do?
Well, that's very tricky, because the thing that we are evaluating when we are deciding whether to offer a place or not is based on the portfolio. So if there isn't a portfolio, that makes it a very difficult activity. After all, people can promise to make imagery and they can talk about making imagery, but it's actually the making of the imagery that is the thing that shows us how you make imagery. I mean, it's a sort of a bit of a round robin conversation, really. I think if you, I don't think any of the programs would find it easy to offer somebody a place with no portfolio. I mean, the purpose of this presentation today is really telling you how to put a portfolio together. I think that you don't have to have gone through formal art training. It isn't the case. I mean, we do take a lot of students from foundations, from BTECs, and we like that because it means that we can see how you think through image making, what your individual kind of language is. And, you know, it is the case that some people pick up a camera and make fantastic photography. Some people pick up some sewing or fabric or material and make the most amazing imagery through fabric and materials. That is what makes us what we are, our image making. So if there isn't any of that, it makes it very difficult for us to ascertain how good or not, and whether you're even applying to the right course. But having said that, don't worry too much if perhaps you're doing A levels and you're doing all science A levels. If you can go to life drawing classes, and there are life drawing classes all over the place, and all courses like to see drawing, even if it's photography, even if it's interiors, even if it's, you know, what seems to be perhaps a course that's not related to drawing, because drawing is image making. Also, you can all pick up a camera and you can take photographs. You can all maybe make some models or kind of play, you know, make things for yourself. The point is to have a go at making a portfolio, have a go at making imagery, even if you don't have the opportunity to go to a foundation or a art course. That doesn't mean you can't make art. The world is full of people that are making art all the time that aren't on any courses at all. So I think, make imagery, make it, have it. If you think you're interested in fashion, have a go. And just see what happens. Pick up some fabric, pick up some fashion things, but also look and research into the subject. You need to come prepared for the subject that you're interested in. And I think if you make no imagery at all, one would have a conversation with somebody where we'd say, where's the evidence of the fact that you're interested in this area?
Thank you for that, Nancy. So we've got another question around animation portfolios. And I know we haven't spoken about that, but is that something we can answer, or?
Yes, I can answer for animation a bit because it's a sister course to illustration. Okay. We do a lot of animation on illustration. What was the question?
So we've got a question if they have like any tips for an animation portfolio.
Well, I think it's sort of actually very similar to what we've just been saying about all the other portfolios. I think you want to show evidence of drawing, because often with animation there's a lot of drawing involved. Not always, sometimes it's 3D animation, model making. Often you can work through sort of programs and create sort of visual effects and so on. But I think you should be having a go at those programs. Almost any kind of computer will have animation programs now on it, and you can have a go. I think you need to be interested in narrative, because often animation is narrative, it's storytelling. I think you could be interested in sound, you could be interested in sort of cartoons and comics and kind of maybe other forms of animation that exist. Look at lots of animation and inform yourself. But I know the animation course does like drawing. They also do live drawing every week, and looking at walk cycles and moving image. That's all very much part of it. I think the thing is, it isn't that there is just one portfolio that will get you into one. There's not a generic portfolio that will just get you into everything. What we're really looking for, all of us, is a student who's got a genuine interest in the subject and just wants to have a go. You're not meant to be at the end of the subject, you're at the beginning. It's a learning process. So we don't expect you to be a finished, marvelous kind of, animator or sculptor, or you're at the beginning of the process. But showing energy and enthusiasm and curiosity, those are the things we look for.
Well, thank you for that. We've got another kind of like animation question as well, and it's for the 3D animation and games course, would we need to be able to show previous experience of 3D softwares?
Well, I think one of the things that all of the programs again experience is that everybody comes with very different experience. Some people are real drawers and they're image makers and they work in traditional processes and they've never worked on a computer at all. And then you have other people that come that have incredibly good experience and are real whizzes on computers and programs and kind of can, you know, put us all to shame. The reality is that everybody can't, you know, both students have places on the course, and the course itself is designed to enable everybody to learn here. So I think if you haven't had a lot of experience of 3D animating programs, I don't think that would be a problem, because the course will teach you that.
Thank you for that. We are running a little bit short on time, so maybe we'll only answer a couple more questions.
I also wanted to just give an opportunity to the SLAs and GAAs, just to sort of wrap up anything that's occurred that they wanted to come back on. But let's go to another question. Yes.
Let's go to one final question then. So what exactly is the difference between interior design and interior architecture?
Very good question. And during every interview and open day, we have this question. So interior architecture, if we think about it, we can straight away say that it's more structural. We will talk and learn more about the detail, and we will make much more models as full models and the details as well. When interior design will be more a finished product, more materiality we will talk about. As well, there will be a bit more, a little bit of making, but not as much as interior architecture. Some of the lessons you will have all together, and we will teach you all the same skills, but we will direct you to a little bit different approaches of finishing your projects. And as we used to say, that interior architecture actually creates the trends, and interior design will follow it. So maybe if it's clear enough, this is the difference. So to sum up, interior architecture is more detailed, structural, and more making, and interior design is more about the finishing, about the materials and experience in the space.
Thank you for that, Carolina. That's a really good way to distinguish between the two courses. I think we'll finish with a Q&A there. I'm sorry for anyone whose question wasn't able to be answered. We do have an open day coming up, so that is a great way for you to ask any of your questions, pop down to the campus and actually see all these amazing people, see them in action, ask them all their questions, and just, yeah, get a real vibe for the university.
I think also students can email program leaders and GAAs directly. You know, we're happy to answer questions on specifics within each area. That would be fine.
That's really good. Do we want to have a couple of like words just to wrap up and then before we finish?
Yes, I mean, can any of the GAAs and SLAs, anybody wants to just sort of make any final contributions, please do now.
Hi, I can introduce myself and give just an advice from student perspective. So hi, I'm Mariella and I'm in my 3rd year of fine art. And just to kind of say what Georgia said, and I really agree, is even if there's work that you don't feel as more proud of, or you don't feel, oh, this should be seen, if it's a different skill or technique or showing your creativity, do show it, make it look presentable. But don't be afraid of, oh, it has to be a certain standard, because in the end of the day, I think they're looking for creativity and seeing if you can adapt to different ideas and, you know, skills and environment of our course. So yeah, don't feel afraid. So that's what I just wanted to add.
Yeah, that's a lovely point, I think, Mariella. And I think that's for all of the programs. We just want to see that you're interested and engaged and want to have a go. We don't need to see really finished stuff or polished stuff. In fact, quite often the polished stuff tells us less about you sometimes in the end. So I think that's a really nice point. Anybody else? Anything?
Sorry for the technical difficulties. I just wanted to say that when you go to the interview, I think it's best not to over plan and overthink things. I think you just show that you're really interested and show that you really enjoy the work you've produced, and that will really show through.
Yes, that's a lovely point as well, Yusra. I think, you know, one can't say it too many times really that it is a chat and it is an opportunity for us to get to know you. We don't want it to be scary, because if you're frightened or intimidated, you know, it's more difficult to hear your voice and find out about you. So yes, it should feel comfortable and inviting, and an opportunity for you to ask us lots of questions. Definitely. Anybody else? Anything? Well, I think also one of the things that the person who was asking about the difference between interior architecture and interior design, that's the purpose of coming to an open day as well, because when you come to an open day, we can really explain it. It's quite difficult for us to talk too much about all of the individual programs here, because this is about portfolio preparation. But the open days are exactly that. They are the opportunity for us to talk about the programs. We show lots of work, we show the studio, we talk about the structure of the program, what your learning experience will be. There is somebody who keeps putting their hand up a lot. I don't know, there seems to be is there somebody who did want to ask one last question, or are we really at the end now?
Well, if they want to pop it in the Q&A function, they can do. We won't be able to let you actually speak in this webinar, but if you want to pop it in, you're more than welcome to. We'll maybe give it 1 more minute.
Okay.
But in the meantime, hopefully this is a quick question we can answer. So for a digital portfolio, what size should it be in pixels, roughly?
Oh my goodness, that's a very specific question. I don't think there's an answer to that in that way. I think the point is, if there are specifications when you make an application, each of the programs does specify how they want the digital portfolio to be produced. It will be a megabyte limit. So there will be a maximum size that can be uploaded to the system, and that is specified in the application process. So I can't tell you that it's this pixel size or that pixel size, because it may well be that it's dependent on how many images you have actually in your PDF. But I think that's too difficult for me to answer here and now. You know, I'll say 3,000 by 2,000 or whatever. It's not really the answer. I think the point is to have a look when you're making an application at what size your digital portfolio can be, and that will all be on the website when you get invited to upload your work.
Well, thank you so much for that, Nancy. And thank you for all of you for all your time and all your insight. It's really great to see all your passions for all the courses that you're doing. It's really exciting. I feel excited about it. I'm not applying. So I hope everyone feels the same. And thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. If Nancy, did you have any last words you wanted to say?
Just thank you very much to all the GAAs and SLAs for participating. I think that's been really useful, and hopefully we've got lots of people excited about applying to the courses now and coming to open days.
Well, we hope to see you all very soon. I hope you all have a lovely evening.
Thanks very much. Bye then.
Bye.
Bye.